Michael Randolph locked the door with a smirk, blissfully unaware that he had just denied access to his new boss. In a week, his world would come crashing down. But let's start from the beginning. The Winslow and Coping office in the city center bustled with its usual morning activity. Michael Randolph, a mid-level manager, strolled down the hallway with a cup of coffee in one hand and a self-satisfied smirk on his face. The previous evening, he had decided to block access to one of the offices, assuming that some junior staff member was trying to sneak into an unused workspace. "This place is for those who've earned it," he muttered under his breath, feeling like an arbiter of justice. Meanwhile, Evelyn Harris, the newly appointed department head, arrived at the office early, hoping to quietly survey her new domain. When she reached her designated office, she found the door locked. Pulling out her keycard, she tried to gain entry, but the code failed. "What the?" Evelyn frowned, trying to make sense of the situation. As Michael passed by, he noticed her standing there and stopped. Not recognizing her, he tossed out with obvious disdain, "You must be on the wrong floor. This is the executive level. The supply room is downstairs. Try there." Evelyn turned her head, keeping her expression neutral. She didn't dignify his jab with a response, instead watching as he smirked and walked away. As he strode off, Michael made no effort to hide his smug satisfaction. "At least I'm maintaining order," he thought. In his eyes, the junior staff, and especially black employees, were best kept in their place, far from decision-making roles. Evelyn, however, saw the situation differently. She decided to use the moment as an opportunity to observe. Taking a seat at one of the shared desks, she began watching the dynamics of the office, particularly focusing on Michael. In a short amount of time, she noticed his condescending tone with colleagues, his blatant disregard for black employees, and his unapologetically sarcastic comments. At one point, Lisa, a young black intern, approached Michael with a set of documents for his signature. Barely glancing at them, Michael snapped, "Next time, at least check them before handing them in. Or is that too much for you?" His tone dripped with irritation, and his gaze bore down on her as if her mere presence in the company was a mistake. Evelyn clenched her teeth. It was only her first day, but it was already clear. Serious work lay ahead, and Michael would likely be her first challenge. The morning began with a meeting where Michael addressed the staff to discuss new projects. Evelyn, deciding to continue observing, took a seat at the back of the room, blending into the background. Michael, basking in his sense of authority, ran the meeting with a dismissive attitude toward his subordinates. "Let's start with last week's mistakes," he said, casting a disapproving glance at Lisa, the same intern he had humiliated the day before. "Lisa, how much longer do we have to wait for you to reach even a basic level of professionalism?" Lisa flushed crimson, but said nothing. The rest of the team sat in silence, avoiding Michael's gaze. Evelyn noticed the heavy tension that seemed to hang in the air. After the meeting, Michael lingered by the water cooler, sarcastically discussing the news of a new department head with his colleagues. "They say she's some kind of reformer," he scoffed. "Probably another armchair expert who's never worked a real day in her life. Let's see how long she lasts." Evelyn overheard him from a nearby corner while pretending to review some work documents. She had already seen how fear and apathy allowed Michael to maintain his grip on the office. It was time to act. An hour later, a call came from HR. The new department head had requested that all employees prepare reports for an introductory meeting. Michael, still oblivious to who had scheduled the meeting, snorted. "Of course! They need to flaunt their importance. Let them wait," he said dismissively. As the meeting time approached, Evelyn watched as Michael berated a janitor who had accidentally spilled water in his path. "Do you even pay attention to what you're doing?" Michael snapped. "We're trying to work here, and you're just making problems. Maybe you should find a job that's more your speed." Evelyn's patience was wearing thin as she saw the elderly janitor lower his gaze and apologize quietly. The employees began filing into the conference room. Michael sauntered in last, casually tossing a folder of reports onto the table. His face radiated irritation. "I hope this doesn't take long," he grumbled, slouching into his chair. At that moment, the conference room doors opened, and Evelyn entered. Her gaze was steady, and her voice carried authority as she addressed the room. "Good morning. I'm Evelyn Harris, your new department head." A sharp silence fell over the room. Michael froze, his face draining of color as the folder slipped from his hands and hit the table with a thud. Evelyn scanned the room, noticing the employee's surprise and curiosity. Michael, stunned at first, quickly forced a smile. "Welcome, Ms. Harris. We were just discussing projects. I hope everything meets your standards." Evelyn gave a cold smile and projected a chart of departments and their leaders. "I'm here to continue the company's successes and assess the work environment," she said. "I've observed issues with communication and respect." Michael tried to defend himself. "These are just typical challenges for a large department. We're managing." Evelyn's sharp tone cut him off. "Managing? HR data shows your department is losing talented employees. I intend to find out why." The meeting continued with Evelyn emphasizing the need for respect and collaboration. At the end, she addressed Michael. "You have strong skills, but your style is problematic. Let's discuss this privately." After the meeting, Michael approached her. "Ms. Harris, I believe you misunderstood my efforts to maintain discipline." Evelyn folded her arms. "Misunderstood? Yesterday you locked me out of my office and made a sarcastic comment. Is that your idea of discipline?" Michael stammered. "I didn't realize it was your office. We have strict rules." Evelyn's gaze hardened. "And one of those rules is respect, which you violate regularly. Your style is toxic." She added, "You'll attend management training next week. Take this opportunity or consider your future here." Michael, visibly shaken, nodded. "Of course, Ms. Harris. I'll consider your feedback." As he walked away, Evelyn felt a shift in the office. The atmosphere lightened, and she knew this was just the beginning of the change she was ready to lead. A week had passed, and the office was abuzz with a new energy. Change was in the air, and employees began to sense that the old ways of doing things were no longer untouchable. Some cautiously shared their thoughts with Evelyn, recounting the toxic culture that Michael had cultivated over the years. Others, like Lisa, expressed gratitude for Evelyn's willingness to stand up for them. Michael, on the other hand, had grown increasingly withdrawn. News of his mandatory management training had spread, and his once firm grip on authority was visibly slipping. During the sessions, he showed little enthusiasm, attending out of obligation rather than willingness to change. Evelyn knew it was only a matter of time. Either he would adapt or he would leave. The turning point came at the next department-wide meeting. Evelyn announced the introduction of new policies aimed at fostering a healthier work environment. "From today, we'll be implementing measures to improve our team dynamics," she said, projecting confidence. "These include an anonymous feedback system, regular management training, and open forums where employees can freely share their ideas." She paused, her gaze sweeping the room. "We're building a team rooted in respect and support," she emphasized. "Every employee deserves equal treatment, regardless of their role or status." The room was silent for a moment before a few employees, including Lisa, began to clap. For the first time in years, there was a palpable sense of hope during a team meeting. But the true test came later at a company luncheon. During a discussion about a new project, Michael made an attempt to reclaim his authority. He mocked an idea proposed by a junior employee, clearly expecting the room to laugh along. Instead, the employee, visibly nervous but resolute, replied, "I believe our team now focuses on constructive feedback rather than ridicule. Isn't that right, Ms. Harris?" Evelyn smiled warmly, but directed her sharp gaze at Michael. "Exactly," she said. "I'm glad you understand our new approach." Michael tried to justify his comment, stumbling over his words, but it only further isolated him from the group. Within days, he submitted his resignation, citing disagreements with the new management style. His departure sent a clear message. There was no longer a place for toxic behavior in the company. Under Evelyn's leadership, Winslow & Company became a shining example of transformation. She turned the department into a supportive, respectful team where every voice was valued. Her actions inspired employees to embrace change and stand up for their rights. Sitting at her desk, Evelyn watched as her team collaborated and exchanged ideas with enthusiasm. She knew this was only the beginning of a long journey, but she was confident that progress was possible when you fought for it to the very end.